Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com, your home for everything Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers are tearing up the desert in Las Vegas. They are now 3-0 in Summer League, maybe on the way to another Summer League title. Knock on wood. Hopefully it happens. We'll see. Today, I have brought in Nikki K from Lakers Nation and Chris Grenham from CLNS and Celtics Blog to help us sort through all of the madness that's going on in the world of Los Angeles Lakers. Guys, thanks so much for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course, the Lakers are never going to lose a game ever again.
Yes, yeah, we're heading into an 82-0 season based on Summer League play. So let's talk about the whole situation with the Lakers right now. We'll get to Summer League in just a bit, but for the moment, the Los Angeles Lakers have their roster almost entirely filled out, and there's a lot of debate over whether or not they've made the right choices in terms of filling out their roster. But as of right now, according to Eric Pincus, the capologist who is well known, the Lakers have about $4.8 million in cap space left. The free agent market is thinning. Do you guys see any targets that they should maybe go after that are still out there on the market they could realistically get?
Right now, I'm not really sure. Like you said, it's thinning a lot at the moment, and they're not going to go after a guy like Clint Capella. They simply don't have the room for that at the moment, and no one really knows what's going to go on with that situation. But it's interesting now going post Julius Randle and how they move forward here. It really depends on, they've got one spot left. Do they turn to a guy like Channing Frye? Do they go into this really thinning market? I'm not really sure. I guess they're just going to have to kind of play it by ear going forward because, again, it's not a ton. They don't have as much space as a team like the Kings, so they can't go out and make a massive move. But I'm not really sure where they go from here.
Yeah, it seems like they're in kind of a tough spot with the center position, although maybe they're just going to move forward with JaVale McGee as the starting center and eating up the minutes. I'm a little nervous about that.
And how much are you willing to bet on Moe Wagner coming in as a rookie, right? And what he can show in those moments.
Let me throw a name out there that is still there and see what you guys think. I don't think he's a good fit, but Jahlil Okafor does not have a team right now.
That would add so much to this Lakers chaos right now.
The soap opera would just get that much juicier.
Yeah, it really would. For content purposes, let's do it. Let's bring him to LA. Like, that sounds great. I'm not sure, like you said, if that would be the best fit, but it surely would be interesting.
I ran a poll on Twitter a few days ago, and I had who did I have on there? I had Greg Monroe, Alex Len, Channing Frye, and Jahlil Okafor. And last I looked, Jahlil Okafor was leading the poll as the guy fans. I think people just still think of him as that number 3 overall pick, and he's got all his talent. But no, let's not do that.
Yeah.
There's a reason he doesn't have a team right now.
There is, yeah. And it's funny with this thinning market how guys like Alex Len have suddenly become not necessarily a top priority, but someone who's getting mentioned in almost every conversation. A guy like Greg Monroe would be interesting. I saw him a lot in Boston last year, and he's, a good piece coming off the bench, but he's not really going to give you valuable minutes per se. They're going to be minor 10 or less, and I think maybe JaVale going forward is the way to do it.
Well, let's talk about Greg Monroe real quick, since you've got experience with him up close and all that. If you look at what the Lakers have, JaVale McGee and Moe Wagner and Ivica Zubac, those are their options at center right now. Is Greg Monroe different enough to where maybe he's worth bringing on, just being a sort of a different look for Luke Walton?
Yeah, he definitely could be if, say they're looking for more rebounding off the bench, because that's what Greg Monroe really brings. He's a little inconsistent on the defensive end, but he's a big body underneath and can provide some size and some big man depth if that's what they're looking for, but it's mainly rebounding. So if that's where Luke Walton wants to go, then Greg Monroe would be a viable option.
I think he's quick enough to stick with the Lakers' pace. Can he get out in transition? I don't remember him doing it much, but again, you'd know him better than I would.
No, not really. I think that kind of peaked at Georgetown for him, but not really. I don't think his pace really matches what the Lakers are going for.
So for right now, their options are few and far between. At center, maybe they look elsewhere. Obviously, there's been rumors of Carmelo Anthony, but it seems almost a lock that he's going to Houston, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now, and I don't think the Lakers really want to bring him into this equation.
Last I heard, Houston and Miami were kind of the final two candidates, and The impression I was left with Carmelo, because I was in that final press conference that went viral with him not wanting to sacrifice no bench role. I don't think that's going to fit in necessarily what the Lakers want to accomplish moving forward. And granted, if he's in a room with Magic Johnson and an RP and they're telling him, this is our vision for you if you want it, I don't know if that's what he wants.
That's right, Nikki. You covered Carmelo Anthony for the Thunder last season. What was your take overall on him? Does he still have what it takes to be in the NBA and be a contributor to a contending team?
I think his production was down, but his pride isn't, and rightfully so. I think who are we to doubt him at this point? Obviously, yes, we've seen him age, and he hasn't aged like LeBron has. But at the same time, he's had this role, this top dog persona for his entire career, and one season, whether he likes it or not, or whether we like it or not, in his head isn't going to justify him accepting a bench role. So one of the most interesting things about Thunder exit interviews was talking to Raymond Felton, who has recently gone into that, second string point guard role. And we asked him, with a guy like Carmelo, when you have to accept that stage in your career where you're no longer a starter, what does that mean for you as an ego and for you as a man? And Ray said, that is something that I as a friend could talk to Carmelo about, but it will never come to fruition unless it's determined with Carmelo on his own. So that's something that Melo's going to have to figure out on his own.
Not easy for a guy to make that transition from being a star into being a role player. We saw Grant Hill do it, and he did it very, very well. And we've seen a few other players do it. Obviously Vince Carter is one who's currently playing, very amazingly still playing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But again, not easy to do, and maybe it's just not in Carmelo's system to do something like that, but we'll see. Let's talk about some of the guys the Lakers actually did sign. Rajon Rondo, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee.
What a crew.
Right, the motley crew of the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's start, Chris, since you know him, let's start with Rondo. What's he going to bring this next season for the Lakers?
He brings that veteran presence into the backcourt, and with a kid like Lonzo Ball back there, it's extremely valuable. And I get people, freaking out originally when, first reaction, you see Rondo's coming in on that 1-year deal, and it's like, he can kind of be a head case in the locker room, but I think he really provides a valuable, asset to Lonzo Ball, and he can kind of provide, maybe a mentor in the backcourt for him, because as different as their play style seems, they are relatively similar, and they both space the floor very well. And in watching them both play, a lot of times they get rid of the ball early on in the shot clock, and they space the floor well, and they create a lot for their teammates. And I think Rondo, in playing in Boston a long time ago, which is obviously where a lot of people remember him, playing alongside Garnett and Paul Pierce, kind of became learned a lot by having them as mentors, as how he can be a mentor for other players. And I think Lonzo Ball is the perfect guy to exemplify that, around Rondo, and I think he can just help him expand his game. Obviously, he might not help him in the shooting department, right, which I'm sure we'll get to, but I think in terms of being a point guard and being a leader, Rondo can really help Lonzo Ball going forward.
So you were in favor. You thought that was a good signing.
I liked that signing. Yeah, I did. I was in favor of that.
Okay. Now, Rondo, obviously, you mentioned he's not a good shooter. But if you go back and you look at his stats for the last 3 seasons, he's not terrible from three.
Not horrible.
The free throw line, yes. The free throw line, he's still very, very bad.
Yeah.
But from 3-point, he's got but this reputation still follows him, that he's this terrible shooter. And then on the flip side, he's got this reputation as a great defender, and the stats don't really show that anymore. What's the takeaway from all that? What can he really still dig in on the defensive end, and can he stretch the floor at all for the Lakers, or is that just wishful thinking?
I think stretching the floor might be wishful thinking, but again, he's kind of a flexible point guard, and he's been known to change his game a lot over the last couple of years. Ask people in New Orleans, I'm sure he came in with a reputation, and I'm sure a lot of people are upset to see him leave New Orleans, but I think he can definitely still dig in on the defensive end, which will help Lonzo Ball a lot. He's more physical than a lot of point guards are, which helps along the perimeter. A lot of guys don't like facing a guard like Rondo because he's trying to bump you off the perimeter, which a lot of point guards don't do on the defensive end. So despite him getting older, I think that's the strongest part of his game.
Should we find a lineup with Rondo, Lonzo, and LeBron all on the court at the same time? The court vision and the IQ in that threesome alone, you're going to be hard pressed to find anything like it in the league.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be an interesting thing to see, and it could very well happen because we saw Rondo last season play alongside Drew Holiday. So it would not be out of the question for Luke Walton to put both Rondo and Lonzo on the floor at the same time. It might be kind of cool. And one story that actually came out today that I know Lakers fans loved to hear about Rondo was that the first thing he did after signing his contract with the Lakers was to go find the team's video coordinator and say, give me footage on every player on the roster so that I can learn all their tendencies. Right? It's July. We're at the beginning of July, and he wants to learn the tendencies of all the guys on the team that he's not going to see for a few months here, and he's already there and ready to start working. So I think that's a good sign at this point.
Yeah, he's a bright one.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a guy who that's kind of what he does. He makes his teammates better, and he thrives off of that. And by learning his teammates' tendencies and knowing where they're going to be on the floor, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and I think that's a great sign. If you're a Lakers fan, you got to be excited to hear that.
So let's talk about the other three guys. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It seems like that was almost like a package deal with LeBron because they announced the LeBron signing, and then shortly thereafter, we got KCP too.
Yeah.
I think it was a Clutch Sports thing, but KCP, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee. Can these guys be the kinds of role players that the Lakers need them to be? Obviously, they bring different skill sets, but Nikki, would you think of those three guys coming on board?
Absolutely. I mean, Motley, first of all, comes to mind, right? But, I mean, you listen to the way Steve Kerr talked about JaVale McGee and the presence he was in the Warriors locker room. I think that is something that shouldn't be looked over, especially, in the likes of Rondo, too, and what he can help set the tone for with this young Lakers core. And obviously, now he's going to be kind of the big man literally on campus with a thinning position in center. Lance Stevenson, to me, is just a hoot. And the stories that I keep seeing come out of if Lance asked if it was okay that he came to the Lakers with LeBron, and now he's saying it's a good thing that it's just it seems to me like the Lakers wouldn't have made these moves if they wouldn't have been signed off with LeBron, and that's what I keep going back to time and time again, despite the lack of shooting. And so I think it's good to bring those guys in immediately. Especially with that young core in there, to kind of maybe help balance Braun out.
I think that all begs the question, though. If Lance Stevenson is a hoot, do you want a hoot coming off your bench and playing major minutes? Is that a good thing, or should we be? He's the one guy that Lakers fans have been more stressed about than any other, even more than Rondo. Lance Stevenson is the guy that people have been kind of upset about. Can he bring some positives to the team, because statistically he hasn't been great? Yeah,
and statistically he's had trouble anywhere other than Indiana. Yes. So he's not a pacer. He struggles. So obviously, maybe it's yellow. Maybe him wearing yellow will help out. Who knows? But again, it's a valid concern, because he hasn't been the best role guy in the past. He's an instigator. He can annoy opposing players, and he can heat up every now and again, but his consistency has been an issue in the past. So obviously, that's going to be a concern going forward. But again, LeBron has dealt with guys like Lance, role players like Lance before. Maybe a J.R. Smith is a decent comparison that comes to mind. But I think that's a wait and see kind of thing. But for now, I understand the concern. I think it's valid. He
brings a little bit of grit on the defensive end, right?
He does.
Which JR did not. So that's fair.
He's a gritty defender, but the question is, can he also be an efficient defender? And we'll see. How about the contracts? $9 million for Rondo, $12 million for KCP, $4.5 for Lance, and JaVale McGee clocked in at the veteran minimum of 1.5. Are we okay with those valuations? Did they overspend, underspend? What do we think?
I think it's tough to value contracts and look at contracts in this weird market because it's so drastically different than the ones that we've seen in past summers. I think people are obviously going to get upset when they see the Lakers potentially, walk on guys like Brook Lopez and Julius Randle, and then they see them giving Rajon Rondo $9 million.
Right.
So I understand that, but again, you kind of have to look at this as a broad picture and say, well, this is kind of a weird market and one that is a buyer's market essentially, and we haven't really seen something like this in a while. So it's tough to judge off of this, but I can see the level of, why did we give Rajon Rondo $9 million? But it's a weird market.
Well, and I would say 1-year contracts are the best contracts in this market, right?
Exactly.
So you look at it for that, and they're tradable, especially too with expiring so.
And I think a lot of it is leading forward to next summer as well, towards 2019, which is set to be a pretty big summer. So if you look at it in that regard, they'll expire next year, and you can go forward that way. So that's a positive spin on it.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody's willing to take a 1-year deal. So these are guys that they could get in that fit what they were looking for, and we'll talk about that. But that we're willing to take 1-year contracts as well. So that's definitely something worth noting. As far as what the Lakers are trying to do, it appears that the game plan is to, rather than try to fill their team with shooters, which has been the main strategy for building around LeBron in the past, is now to try to fill your team with playmakers who can also play defense. That's not to say they don't have shooting. I think they have a little more than people give them credit for, but what do we think about this strategy? Is this the way to move forward for the team building around LeBron, or is this just very likely to blow up in their faces, which seems to be what a lot of people are thinking?
I think the young core is something that a lot of people are overlooking, because once they hear LeBron, they immediately go to, well, he needs shooters. And if there are no shooters, they say it's a bad crew around him and it's not going to work. I think the young core of playmakers is kind of a good approach, because in years past, the shooters haven't really worked around him. And a lot of times a shooter turns into, a non-efficient defender. And so the Lakers have some grit on defense, like you said, and guys like Ingram and Kuzma and Ball, I think, are a very intriguing group to surround him with, and I think are guys that could potentially be a little more active off the ball than players in Cleveland were, and I think LeBron could definitely benefit from that.
I think my biggest question with the fit of this roster comes in looking at the pace the Lakers have been playing with of recent, and then LeBron's strength lying in his half-court genius and operating at a slow, grinded-out where he's able to execute and command the floor at his will. So I'm really interested to see how that balances out, especially being here at Summer League where everything's attracting you, right? And you get all excited and caught up in that. And then, look at the way Lonzo and Kuzma have played, and Ingram as well, and how they are all going to kind of merge together. But what I do really like about this roster is that it does seem like everyone has a certain strength set that it kind of pertains to a higher IQ player, which is also what LeBron wants to be surrounded by. So, I don't know. It's very, very exciting.
JaVale McGee and of course Lance Stevenson. Are these high IQ players? Can they be? I mean, no. Rondo, absolutely. Rondo is a basketball genius. KCP can have his crazy moments where he fires up a bad shot, but do we think we hit that mark of landing those high IQ players that LeBron wants? I think some of it depends on Lance and JaVale. Where can they kind of fall in line with that?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't in the past. Maybe being surrounded by guys of higher IQs like a Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, those guys who are known for being smarter players and good decision makers on the court, maybe that'll rub off on them. You'd hope so. But in the past, obviously, Lance and JaVale have not been the smartest players on the floor, per se.
Or if there's so much decision-making going on around them, they don't need to be the decision makers.
That's true.
That's very true. That's a great point, especially when you look at Brandon Ingram, how he was empowered to make decisions last season. KCP did it probably a little more than he was comfortable last season, but still, he can make plays. Of course, Julius Randle did it quite a bit, and he won't be back. But Kyle Kuzma is also an underrated passer. So, yes, that's a great point. It's possible that JaVale almost certainly won't be making decisions on the floor. He's just going to be the roll man. And Lance Stevenson may not have to make that many choices out there. Let's talk a little bit about the one that got away. And Nikki, you can speak to this quite a bit. Paul George, we heard for a year, all the way since last summer, that Paul George was hell-bent on becoming a Laker. And then the clock strikes midnight, free agency begins, and he returns to the Thunder. Doesn't even doesn't even take a meeting, doesn't meet with Magic Johnson. What happened?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and this is coming from someone who grew up in Los Angeles and spent the last 2 years of my life in Oklahoma City, and I've seen the inner workings of that franchise inside and out. The Thunder operate at an extremely high level, which the Laker fans might not be able to see being in Los Angeles, but you come in and that franchise will devote everything to its players and protect them, at all costs. And I think also that's to say that the Thunder brass learned how, with the departure of KD, how they might need to approach courting free agents moving forward. And so you got to give props to Sam Presti for getting George in the locker room in the city. And I also think Paul is a very agreeable person. And when you're put alongside a very strong personality like Russell Westbrook, and you find a friendship there and a camaraderie, it's kind of hard to say, hey, why walk away from this? I was shocked to see the 3 years, 4 years, longer term deal for Paul. I thought it was, if anything, going to be a 1+1. I did kind of get a feeling throughout the season that he was happy, but it didn't surprise me that he signed with Oklahoma City. I think the more surprising factor was the duration of the contract that he agreed to.
Chris, Paul George said in that ESPN series that over and over again he wanted to win a championship. And Nikki mentions that maybe it was his friendship with Russell Westbrook that kind of swayed him. But from a basketball perspective, if his choice was the Lakers and knowing that LeBron's maybe coming versus staying with the Oklahoma City Thunder, if championship is the goal, did he make the right decision?
It's interesting. You have to say teaming up with LeBron would be the championship decision. I think that's a no-brainer because any team that LeBron is on has a chance to win, and it sounds crazy, but that's just the case. I think the key that Nikki hit on was the relationship that Sam Presti kind of created with him and potentially with him and Russell Westbrook. I think, from what I've heard, at least around midway through this past season and towards the All-Star break and past that he was leaning pretty heavily on staying in Oklahoma City. And that has to start at the top with Sam Presti and the relationship that he built with them. But if you look at it from a basketball perspective, he probably had a better chance to win a championship sooner in Los Angeles solely because of the LeBron move. But he was definitely aware that LeBron was going to LA, so this was he was fully knowledgeable of the situation around him.
Right. And as far as him not taking, there's been so many people that have said, why not even take a meeting? Why not meet with the Lakers, sit down with them? And Nikki, you mentioned he's very agreeable. It was kind of suggests that at the same time he doesn't want to disappoint people. So could that have played a factor there? Could it be he just doesn't want to meet with Magic and say no?
Yeah, I that's a really good way of putting it too. It's something I didn't even think of. And this is all, of course, speculation. I just there's so many angles you could look at it. Why wouldn't he want to come home and play alongside LeBron James? Was that too much pressure? Was he looking forward to reestablishing what they had already kind of laid a foundation by December in Oklahoma City last season? And I do know that, Paul has used the term unfinished business multiple times, and it wasn't just in that documentary. He said it in his exit interview. He left a lot on the table in the playoff series. Not a lot of people are talking about the way he ended the season in Oklahoma City because the attention has kind of all shifted towards Carmelo Anthony and what he brought the team down with, which to me is kind of a silly thing to point at. But I do know that especially when Paul's sharing the court with Andre Robertson, who it doesn't really make sense, but you can't explain the value that Dre brings when he's on the floor on the defensive end. It alleviates Paul. Paul's able to do what he excels best at defensively, which is create those steals and generate those turnovers, because Andre's doing all the legwork. So I think that with that left on the table, Paul truly felt there was unfinished business. And Lakers Nation, maybe he did feel like he just couldn't even fathom getting the hopes up of people back home. I don't know.
Well, of course, for Lakers fans, I mean, it will shift a little bit to guys they did sign here, but Paul George, I kind of wonder about what's going to happen when he does come home. Is Southern California for him? What's going to happen when he comes back now? Because it feels like there's quite a bit of venom out there. Although that was alleviated somewhat because there was that big drop of, oh my gosh, Paul George isn't coming. We get nobody, and then LeBron's here.
Yeah.
Right. It was in like a 24-hour period, right? That roller coaster. So what do you guys anticipate? Is Paul George going to be seen as the villain in his own hometown, or how does it go?
I mean, I think the LeBron signing definitely helps because it almost took the heat off of him because right when free agency started, obviously Paul George returned to OKC, so that was the focus immediately. But then a couple days later, LeBron kind of took the heat off him. But he's got to be seen as some sort of villain. I mean, for the last year, everyone was just waiting on him to, by this time, be a Laker. And now that he's not, there has to be some animosity there for sure. And I think he's got to be, in some villain form to this point.
Los Angeles loves its drama. They're going to manufacture drama. Yeah. I love the drama. So why not have some jaunting and cheering or booing when he comes?
Okay, so in terms of the decibel meter, right? Who was going to get a louder negative reception? Paul George or Dwight Howard first year coming back with Houston? Which one's worse?
That's a hysterical comparison.
Right?
Yeah, man.
I would say Dwight, right?
Dwight, that's hard to top.
Because Dwight's kind of gotten this toxic rep now around
Dwight's
the league.
like a league villain.
Yeah.
So I feel like you could say that about any arena,
Yeah.
but especially LA. I think, it's got to be Dwight.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Summer League. We're out here in Las Vegas. I've got one more day here. Nikki, you've got a few days. Chris, are you staying?
I got one more day.
One more day. And Summer League is an experience in and of itself. What have you guys witnessed and seen here? And anything Lakers specific that you've taken away from Summer League so far?
I saw Woj today with 8 phones in his hand. No, he had one phone, but
you would think he has 8, right?
But the 8, that's believable.
Yeah.
That's believable.
I would totally buy that.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. But, this is my first day here, my first Summer League ever, and it's heaven on a place. It's awesome. I want to come back every year. It's like a basketball junkie's dream.
It is, yeah. It's like basketball utopia. Keith Smith described it as Comic-Con for basketball people,
yes,
and I think that kind of hit the nail on the head. It's incredible. It's like you're walking through Twitter or something.
Yeah.
You're walking through.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, you're recognizing everyone, and you're introducing. They're like, wow, you're a real person. Like I've talked with you on Twitter so many times, and you're seeing owners and coaches and players, and it's incredible. It's a really cool experience.
Now we've seen Moe Wagner do pretty well, even though he did get hurt tonight. He's got an ankle sprain and a knee strain on the same leg, which is painful sounding. Svi Mykhailiuk has been doing really well. Josh Hart has been a monster. What has your takeaways been of the Lakers Summer League team so far from what you guys have seen?
I think Moe Wagner on the defensive end has impressed me a lot. I know that was a big question mark.
Yep, it was.
In the draft period and after he was chosen by the Lakers, and I think parts that have impressed me in terms of his footwork and awareness have been much better than at least what I saw at Michigan. I think his awareness underneath at Michigan, at least, was a little, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but inefficient in the sense that he would kind of take some possessions off. And I don't know if it was a lazy thing or not, but that's just the way he played. And I think so far, besides the injuries, obviously, he's been really sound on the defensive end. His footwork's been great. And I think that is a drastic improvement, and it shows, what he worked on moving up.
Yeah, that's definitely a big takeaway for him. We saw tonight. We're recording this right after the Lakers defeated the New York Knicks, and there was a play in the first half, and I wrote this down in my notes because it stood out to me, where Moe Wagner wound up defending Kevin Knox, and Kevin Knox was up top, just outside the 3-point line. And he sees that Moe is switched onto him, and he starts his dribble, and he tries it was either 2 or 3 times, to drive past Moe, and Moe got down into his stance, stayed in front, and forced Kevin Knox to take a tough jumper that he missed. And Josh Hart, as soon as the play was over, is clapping and applauding and praising Moe for what he did. So yes, his defense has been impressive. I wouldn't have thought that he would stay with a guy like Kevin Knox. I didn't think it was possible, and then he pulled it off. Yeah,
especially on the perimeter too. A guy of Moe Wagner's size, especially a rookie, being able to do that along the perimeter is a drastic improvement and something that all teams look for. If he had shown that in the pre-draft process and maybe during his time at Michigan, I'm sure he would have gone a lot higher. So if he can continue to do that, that's a really, really awesome thing for the Lakers.
And Nikki, before the game, I was playing up to you how much Moe talks. I even wrote all about it for LakersNation.com. It was I called him a madman on the floor in this piece that I wrote, in the way that he talks to everybody. We didn't get to see him for all that long, but did you kind of see what I was saying?
I totally picked up on it early. This is my first time watching him live, and I had noticed just from the TV broadcasts the sauce, I like to call it, that he plays with. But yes, after stops, he's just howling, and
so animated.
He's so animated. And I think, to me, watching this group of Lakers, the competitive edge and the fearlessness of the moment is what really strikes me, especially with Svi and Moe. They rise to the occasion, defending Kevin Knox out on the perimeter. It's all about that fire. And I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away watching this team. And then also Josh Hart's decisiveness and evolved decision making, I think, has really contributed to his aggression and his offensive presence, where he can put the ball, dribble to the hole, or he can pull up, and he feels confident out there in all aspects, which I think has really come into fruition this summer league.
Yeah, Nikki and I were able to talk to Miles Simon after the game about what Josh Hart had done, and there was that that stretch, Kevin Knox went insane in the third quarter. They made up a 25-point deficit in like 4 minutes. Yeah, it was.
Are we calling them the New York Knoxerbockers now?
I think we have to at this point. But that happened, and then Josh Hart was on the sideline, went to Miles Simon, and he said, "Let me take him." He said, "I got him. I'm going to shut this guy down," and he did. I think Knox scored maybe one more point, which is huge. I mean, as in terms of his leadership role and everything, Josh Hart is really stepping up. Chris, I know from afar, have you seen changes to Josh Hart's game that so far this summer?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, he got a lot of valuable minutes last year, which I think he benefited from a lot. But again, him on the defensive end was never really his strength. I mean, being a product out of Villanova, it was his scoring touch and his composure and poise on the offensive end, which obviously is still there. But he has shown dramatic improvements on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's huge going forward. He can be a really valuable player for the Lakers, whether it's coming off the bench, whether it's making a spot start. Regardless, he's going to be a guy that, Walton can not worry about coming off the bench. He knows when he comes off, he's going to be productive, and he's going to, give them efficient minutes, and I think that is really important. I can't emphasize enough how, at least in my opinion, important it was that they didn't throw him into a deal for Kawhi Leonard in the last couple weeks. I was honestly, I'm not a Lakers fan or anything, but from afar I was concerned thinking of, them shipping him off and potentially killing his, presence in LA for someone like Kawhi Leonard who could potentially leave next year. So I think Josh Hart's value is, going through the roof.
I think people undervalue him to the point where in every potential Kawhi Leonard trade that you see, his name gets tossed in. It's just like a throw-in piece, and I think people don't assign. They don't assign enough value. They think,
it makes me cringe.
You need
my heart,
right? Yes.
Well played.
I mean, they see Ingram and Kuzma in there, and then they go, "Oh, we'll just throw in Hardy." He's not a throw-in.
He's not.
He's a much more important piece.
Yeah,
much more important than that. Svi Mykhailiuk. Interesting little note. We talked to him after the game. And he said he played point guard I hadn't heard it before. He played point guard growing up. There was a play I noticed where he took off down the floor. He got on a breakaway, and he was pushing the ball, and then he made a great pass in transition, led to a basket. And so I made sure I asked him about it, and he admitted. He said, "Yeah, I played point guard growing up. I'm totally comfortable doing that." Everybody's seen him as just a shooter, and it feels like in Summer League he is really proving what he's been saying all along, and that's that he is much more than just a shooter.
I can do this. I can do this. I can defend and bring the ball up the court. He is points V. No, but I agree with you. I think he has a lot of unpacking to do in terms of what the skills he can bring to the table are, and I think we're just getting kind of the tip of it.
Yeah, his versatility is something that was kind of overlooked, I think, and obviously he fits the Lakers' pace perfectly. He spreads the floor and he pushes the pace, obviously, but his versatility is blossoming right before our eyes here in Vegas. So it's pretty fun to watch.
Very cool moment. I don't remember who he was defending. It was one of the guards on the Knicks. And they were along the sideline, and he tried twice to beat Svi to the baseline, and both times he shuffled his feet, got chest to chest with him, and cut him off. And the play ended, and the Lakers bench gave him a standing ovation. They all stood up and cheered because they were so excited that Svi had done that. So very, very cool. His defense has been unexpectedly good. The other guy we got to talk about, Isaac Bonga. I'm starting to get kind of a Bambi on ice feel from him. He's just been thrown into this NBA Summer League, but
baptism by fire.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he's being thrown into the deep end, but he's showing some interesting flashes, even though he's clearly not comfortable out there. Have you guys seen anything from him that you really can grab onto and say, "Wow, that's really unique what he's doing"?
In terms of style of play, at least, and just his feel for the game, I see a little bit of a Mitchell Robinson comparison there, just of their feel for the game, because it's not really there yet. They're very raw, they're raw prospects, but there are flashes. And again, give him a couple years, it's a project, and give him a couple years and he could be a really, sound player. But I think right now there's not a great feel for the game there. It's very raw, but there's potential, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think if there's anything I've learned, it's that I don't know anything. But there are those little flashes where you're like, okay, and then there's a turnover when he's, so it's an interesting project.
Yeah, and I guess we should caution that summer league isn't everything. I call it the Skeetishvili rule, right? Where he dominated summer league and then didn't do anything in the NBA. Right, and then there's players that like Andre Drummond, I remember infamously struggled in summer league, and then he's a good player now. So I mean, we can't put too much stock into what we're seeing at the moment, but still, it gives us a little bit more insight into what a player is and what they can eventually become. Any other takeaways from summer league in general? My favorite part, I think, is the jerseys. Just jerseys everywhere. I saw a Sonics Kevin Durant jersey today, which was great. Any interesting things you guys have seen while you're here?
One thing I've noticed, at least, I don't know if this is a common thing in LA, but I have seen so many people in full Laker uniforms. I'm talking I'm talking matching shorts, basketball shoes, high socks, like sweatbands. It is very impressive. If they need reserves, they're in the stands.
Dedication. That's so funny. I didn't even notice that was a thing. I wouldn't have even noticed it. It was abnormal.
Yeah, it's very summer league. It's very on brand.
I do like that the caps that are coming into style now have literally people with just like nets on their heads too. That's a thing also. I saw it in both Cox and Thomas and Mac today, so it's it's cute. It's different.
It's different. The jerseys are really good though. There's been some really. I saw a couple out on Houston's today. Yep. I saw a few Rasheed Wallace's out there. So there's a lot of a lot of gems.
I saw Lakers Elgin Baylor today, which normally if they're going to go classic Lakers, you see Magic Johnson, you see Kareem, maybe Jerry West. Yeah. Elgin Baylor is one that you don't see very often.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that was a really good one to see. Gosh, there's so many different things.
I saw a James Worthy one today too.
Oh,
which
that's a good
pretty
one.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So Summer League, guys, for those of you who are listening, if you haven't made the pilgrimage out here to Las Vegas and checked out Summer League, it's so worth it. I mean, obviously we need to wrap up the show here, but our Uber driver last night, Andrew and I, our videographer at Lakers Nation, we went out to dinner, and our Uber driver listed 10 players that she had taken around. She had all these players that she's driven around all over the place. Players are everywhere. You walk through a casino and you see all sorts of people. I saw Steve Smith, the old Atlanta Hawks star, today, and just a number of different people. I think Dikembe Mutombo was here. Yep. Of course, Magic Johnson was at the sideline for the Lakers game. You see all kinds of people here, so very, very cool place to be. Guys, thanks so much for coming on and joining me and helping us get through all the Summer League madness.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Of course, it's been a blast.
And of course, all of you listening out there need to make sure that you go follow Nikki on Twitter at Nikki KFOR. I'm going to just spell that whole thing out for him. At NIKKIKAYKFOR, and at Chris Grenham, which is just like it sounds, and very, very simple. Yeah. So make sure you guys go follow them. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Make sure you guys head over to LakersNation.com for everything Lakers. All the breaking Lakers news is there. And, of course, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to this show on iTunes. You can also find us on YouTube. I know a lot of people have been looking at us up there, so make sure you subscribe to our channel there as well. Till next time, see ya.